Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Eugene Williams, author, educator, speaker, and former child actor. Welcome to the show, Eugene.
Thank you, AJ, for having me. I love this opportunity. Thank you, man.
You are welcome to the show, Eugene. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking about. We'll be talking about education, common sense, and wisdom. We'll learn from all the wisdom that you have gathered over the years as an author, child actor, educator, and speaker. So, but first, to understand for the audience, who they should understand is Eugene Williams. Is he an actor? Is he a child actor, educator, speaker, or is he all the above plus some more? Help us understand.
Eugene Williams, as best I can describe him, is all of those things. At different parts of my life, I was each of those things, but I use all of those different experiences to inform who I am today at this moment. So every day that I live, I find myself taking wisdom and knowledge and experience from the acting opportunities, from the writing opportunities, from the speaking opportunities, and infusing that in my daily life and the way I deal with people. So there's a song called "I'm Every Woman" by Shaka Khan. So in my mind, I'm every man.
Wonderful, wonderful. You, in your childhood itself, you have worked with some of the top names: Bill Cosby, Ossie Davis, Ray Charles, Miss Pearl Bailey, Stephanie Mills, so many of them. Just tell us a bit about that experience, so that how do you remember those days?
Well, I remember those days because they were very, very important moments in terms of the forming of the type of person that I am today. Just to give you I won't go too far back and to give you the story, but I started in show business when I was about 4 years old, and it was quite by accident. My late father was a professor. My mother was a teacher. And I've been reading ever since I was 3.5 years old. Well, actually 2.5, they tell me. I've been reading since the age of 2.5. And so I was a little kid, and I was in my dad and mom's apartment, and their tax consultant came over. I was reading the tax brochure. I didn't know what it meant. I was a little kid, but I was reading the words. And the tax consultant said, well, I have a friend that's going into the advertising business, and he's looking for little kids to do commercials. So my dad said, well, Junior, would you want to do that? And I said, sure, why not? I was a little kid. I didn't know any better. And so the first commercial I tried out for was the Utz potato chip commercial, and I ended up doing that. The second commercial I did was a Sunbeam bread commercial, and the very third commercial I did was a commercial for Jell-O pudding with Bill Cosby. It was the very first Jell-O pudding commercial. If you ever get a chance to see it on YouTube, I'm a little black kid sitting next to Bill Cosby, laughing my head off. And after that, I was the first purple grape in the Fruit of the Loom underwear back to school campaign in the mid 70s. From that, I did Scope mouthwash commercials, Johnson's baby powder commercials, all types of commercials. I was the first black recurring child actor in a role on a soap opera that many people will remember, older folks will remember from years ago, called Search for Tomorrow. I was part of a traveling tour of a musical called Shenandoah with starring John Raitt, who was the father of singer Bonnie Raitt. So I just had a lot of different experiences. I've been in movies with Ossie Davis, a movie where we talked about the life of Benjamin Banneker, and Ossie Davis was the title role in that, and just had opportunities to work with a lot of great people and do a lot of great things, even more than what I'm talking about. But it was just a time in my life where every week, every month, I was meeting somebody new, I was doing something new, and I was being exposed to wider audiences. And so I loved it. I was, my father and my mother, God bless them, they're both dead now, but they were very protective of me, and they made sure that I wasn't taking any roles that would be stereotypical or demeaning. And they were very protective of my career. And they always told me if things got to be too difficult or too rough, My dad would always say, me and your mama got jobs, so we're not depending on you for anything. So if things get too tough, you can always pull out. And to have that security and have parents who were so supportive meant a great deal to me. And so as we go on, I can tell you more stories, but I just wanted to give you the broad brush. It's like, it reminds me of the saying, I've lived a very blessed life. There's a saying, I have wined and dined with kings and queens, and I have slept in alleys and eaten pork and beans. So I've gone up and down in my life, and it's just been a wonderful experience. And to start off, meeting celebrities and meeting stars and meeting influential people, it was a great way to start life. It really gave me the impetus that I needed to move forward and try to inspire other people. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, Eugene. So then you went into education, writing, if I understand, 6 books and many more, perhaps. I don't know about that. But you went into education and not later on into acting. Is it because your dad was a professor, was into the education line?
I feel like education was in my blood, and I probably didn't have a choice, but I didn't know it. My late father was a professor at Howard University. He was a dean at Sojourner Douglas College in Baltimore, Maryland. He was a director of test score improvement for the Washington, D.C. public school system at one point in his career. My mother, she was an English teacher by trade, but she was at one point the regional language arts coordinator for all of Miami-Dade public schools throughout Miami, Florida. And so I came from a family of educators, both of whom were the first people in their immediate families to go to college. So coming up, it was a situation where it wasn't if I was going to college, it was where I was going to go to college. That was how they always, discuss things with me and frame the conversation. So after, I would say, I was about, I just got out of college, and I was just looking for something to do. I kind of stumbled into teaching, quite frankly. I was looking for something to do. And my dad said, well, I'm working for the DC public school system. There's a school called Jefferson Junior High School, and they need somebody to work summer school for them and be their summer school librarian. I said, okay, I'll take on that job. So I was a summer school librarian. I taught English classes and also worked in the library over at Jefferson Junior High School. I enjoyed that opportunity. I was able, from that point, to go into working with Kaplan Learning Services. It was an SAT prep company. Moved from there. While I was working at Kaplan, oddly enough, I was a singing waiter on a cruise ship, the Spirit of Washington. So I would teach students during the day, and I would sing and serve at night. After I left there, I was the community coordinator for a nonprofit organization called Funds for the Community's Future. And what we did was we worked with public schools in Washington, D.C., worked with students and community members in underserved communities. We got them to do community-oriented fundraisers, and we were able to get local banks and local corporations to match the funds that they raised and put them into accounts for college scholarships for the students in those communities. So I did that for a long time. And after I did that, I said, I still want to get into working with students, hands-on, one-on-one, what have you. So I worked as a center director for Sylvan Learning Systems for a year or two. And after I did that, I said, well, that was kind of corporate. I want to be in the classroom every day with kids and really have an influence and effect on their lives. So that's when I started going into public school teaching. My first public school teaching job was at Crossland Senior High School in Prince George's County, Maryland. Then I was a teacher at Tech Road Public Charter School in Washington, D.C. for a while. My family and I moved to Orange, Virginia, where I became the English department head at Orange County High School. And then I went and did some administrative work in the Spotsylvania County Public School System, came back as an assistant principal back to Orange for several years. And before I retired from public education, the last 5 years I have spent as the principal of Cumberland High School in South Central Virginia. So that's a quick history of my career in education, but every day was a learning experience, and I wouldn't trade my career for any career in the world. The chance to work in the classroom with students for 10 years, and then for the last 17 years of my career to work as an administrator, as a principal, as an assistant principal, in terms of the leadership of schools, was just an experience I could never replace.
Wonderful, wonderful, Eugene. a son of a professor, educated, great and highly educated himself, being a principal in so many good educational positions, and then you talk about common sense. You do not talk about something else, some much more deep thinking and all, which is good. You talk about other things also, but you talk lay emphasis on common sense, providing answers, common sense answers that can improve people's life.
Yes.
Why do I understand it, but I want to understand, why do you talk about common sense? Because a lot of times I have heard about that stupidity is one which is a big threat to humanity, humanity itself, because people do not use common sense. I want to understand this common sense from you, how it can improve people's life, and not too much of education. Education seems to be failing, falling.
Right. Well, here's the thing about common sense is that everybody is kind of born with it and has it, but we don't use it for whatever reason. And I don't know why. I'm still trying to figure out why that is. When I can bottle up that reason and sell it to people, I'll be a bajillionaire. But what I can tell you is, as a little child, maybe you see something, or you see something on the stove, you touch it, it burns you, you never touch it again. No one has to remind you. No one has to tell you. No one has to write a book about it, a self-help book about it. You just know. And there's just certain practices that we've seen in everyday living, in education, in politics, in religion, in every aspect of our life, that we've seen it historically not work, but yet so often we continue to repeat these processes. And the old saying, if you continue to repeat something and get the same results and not change that, that's the mark of insanity. Why would you keep doing that? So my whole objective is to tell people everything that you want to do or be in life. And like I say, everybody has different perspectives on religion. I am a religious person. I am a person that believes in spirituality. God has placed us, or whoever higher power you believe in, God has given us all the tools that we need to succeed in the ways that we should. It's just a matter of how we choose to use them. And life is a series of decisions. At any point in your life, wherever you find yourself, if you go back in terms of the decisions that you made, or in terms of childhood, the decisions that were made for you, you can begin to see how you got from A to B, how you got from that point in your life to this point in your life. And you should learn from those things every day and just try your best. The mark of wisdom to me is to try your best, never to make the same mistake twice.
Right, right. So, Eugene, what is your understanding? Why have we left common sense behind and are, acting almost stupid in several aspects of our life? Not that people are stupid, they are very, very intelligent people, but it is just they don't seem to get it. Either people talk about control, or it is about anything which does not make sense if you look at it from a common sense point of view.
I think in some ways it is the belief that, and I call it, in a sense, it's a basic at its most basic level. To me, it's an arrogance. It's the belief that, well, I know what happened over there, but I could change that. I could do better than that. And while I appreciate in some ways that attitude, because it's what drives people to achieve more and do great things, I think we have to be very, very careful about throwing away time-honored things in place of things that look good for the now. Let me give you an example. So what I've noticed, especially in education, and this is just my own opinion, but it's it's 27 years worth of knowledge that informs this opinion. And I've noticed that it feels like in education we're doing certain things to, I don't know if it's on purpose or how it's being done, but it seems like we're actually trying to undermine education in America. A couple of things that we do. Number one, we go ahead and we've decided all of a sudden that students don't need to know the basic math facts in order to perform complicated math functions. So we have a whole generation of kids who cannot do algebra, who cannot do trig, who cannot do calculus because they never memorized their multiplication facts. If you don't know that 5 times 6 is 30, then you don't know what 5x equals 30 means. You just don't. So there's certain things that we have to do, certain building blocks from the beginning of education that will further us along, all of us, no matter what level you are, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, that will help us become better and more advanced in our education. I'll give you another example from education. One of the problems that I've had recently over the past couple of decades is the lost art of teaching reading. We replaced reading with the whole language movement, if you will. We're talking about how we can kind of just grasp general ideas and use those to inform someone's reading. And I come from the old school where we deal with phonics and we deal with sounds. So we deal with consonant blends and long and short vowel sounds and diphthongs, and then you move on to things like main idea, supporting details, vocabulary and context. All of those issues and all of those topics are what informs the person's ability to read and comprehend over the years. But we've lost that, and we've gotten to a place where in a lot of schools we just roll reading into what we teach in our English and language classes, not realizing that there was a time when reading was its own class in and of itself. I remember a time when you had history, math, science, English, and reading classes, and you would go and you would learn about the building blocks of reading, the ways to decode words. You would have the vocabulary exercises. You would even have spelling tests. Of course, that was before, we have computers to correct everything that we do, and AI now can spit out whole essays and books without even, us just giving them an idea. But so by the time, and you would work on a level by level basis. So you were working on your reading skills outside of your actual English classes. I remember these things called SRA readers, where you would start with the little blue level, and that was kind of easy, and you'd read that. And then after a certain number of good grades on that level, you have mastery, and you go to the red, and you go to the purple. And before you knew that, you were actually reading on grade level. Because one of the things that's really troubling folks in America, and in many cases around the world, from what I'm hearing, in terms of our young people in schools today, is there are a significant number of kids who are not reading on grade level. But here's the reason for that. This goes back to the common sense. And this is a Googleable fact, especially in America. 54% of all Americans of all ages, races, creeds, and colors and affiliations, 54% of all Americans read on the 6th grade level or below. So kids are struggling with reading because we live in a society, perhaps, that does not value reading in the same way that it used to. I'm old enough to remember when you would wake up on a Saturday morning and you would see shows that would teach you about English and the alphabet and vocabulary at ages 2, 3, 4, and 5 before you even got into school. I'm old enough to remember Schoolhouse Rock. That's where I learned the parts of speech. Now is the person, place, or thing. Lolly, lolly, lolly. Get your adverbs here. Verb. That's what's happening. We unpack your adjectives. I learned all of those things. I learned about civics. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill if they vote for me on Capitol Hill. I learned about all of those things before I even got into a classroom. There were shows like Sesame Street, where you knew your alphabet and you knew how to count to 10 before you were even 3 or 4 years old. Sesame Street, Zoom, Vila Regre. I learned to speak Spanish from a show called Vila Regre when I was growing up. And they would have one half of the show done in English and the other half of the show done in Spanish. And by the time that show was over, you knew some new Spanish words and you weren't even in 1st grade yet. So that media has changed. Kids used to watch educational programming as a matter of course in their daily watching. Now they're watching all kinds of wild and weird stuff and Real Housewives of this and reality show that, and we begin to wonder why our young people aren't as stable with their reading skills as we'd like them to be. But I ramble on. That's just very important to me, as I'm very passionate about that. So.
Does the education system has this wisdom of doing something about it, or is it that wisdom is also very compartmentalized now and the education system is left to itself? How do you see any hope, or do you see that kids will have to fight their own battle in terms of intelligence, in terms of knowledge?
I see hope, but in order for that hope to occur, we need for school administrators, school teachers, public officials, parents, and students to all be on the same page. We talk about how, the past is the past and that's the old days. And I can tell you, as an African American, there are a lot of things about the old days that we should never return to. But there
Right.
are also a lot of things about the old days that were very, very positive and were universal in terms of helping children learn. That I think we're so caught up in being new and innovative that sometimes we lose the common sense piece of what has worked from generation to generation to generation and continues to work in many cases when certain people employ those teaching techniques.
Right, right. Well explained, Eugene. Now let's understand wisdom. A lot of wisdom is flowing on the internet, on YouTube, and everywhere. I don't know what to do with that wisdom, but I'm sure there is some wisdom which is genuine wisdom where people are talking about gratitude in the real sense. Spirituality is almost making, a lot of, you say, a comeback. Why I say comeback? Because in India, it is almost like a part of our culture or daily life. So some parts we know. Sometimes we also tend to forget, or many people tend to forget in the hustle and bustle of life. But I, when I talk to guests, more and more guests seem to be talking about spirituality, seeming talking about understanding themselves, understanding their life, understanding things from a very global perspective, holistic perspective, trying to understand ourselves better. As I said, about gratitude, about so many things. How do you see wisdom as? What is wisdom in our life? What should wisdom we should get out of the all the great wisdom or repository of wisdom that we have? Because if we had this wisdom all along, but still we are moving towards slowly by slowly towards almost disaster, like the doomsday clock is as closest to midnight as ever in today's time.
Wisdom is that elusive thing, but yet it's substantive but elusive because it is all around us. But it's one of the things we talked about before. We don't tap into it. For example, you talked about gratitude. I have a talk that I do with students and folks about gratitude. And it's very simple on its face, but if you think about it, it's very, very important. Number one, when I was a principal and a student would come in upset, angry, mad, and just not wanting to go with the program, go with the flow, I would ask them, I said, well, first of all, come into the office, let's talk. Well, I don't want to talk. Let's stop. First of all, let's analyze who you're mad at. Because you just got here and I just got here. And I wasn't with you last night. I wasn't on the school bus with you. I wasn't in those places. So you can't be mad at me. So let's figure out before we start conversing with one another, who are you upset with? What is the source of your anger? We would start from there. And then I would say, before we get too angry, let's think of a few things that we need to be happy about. I hate school. I said, well, you hate school. I understand that. But it's all about perspective. Because some people say, I got to go to school. And other people say, I get to go to school. I have the privilege of going. There's some people that can't go to a school, that can't learn, that wish they could read, that wish they could learn math because they want to achieve and to function in their lives, and they have no option or ability to do that. So think about that. I said, when you got up this morning, did you brush your own teeth? Yeah, Mr. Williams, I brushed my own teeth. Somebody was not able to do that this morning. When you got up this morning, did you dress yourself? Yeah, I dressed myself. There was somebody that was not able to do that this morning. Did you get up out of a bed where you're in your own home? Did you say hello to your parents? Little things that we take for granted. And if we start thinking about those things on a daily basis, we begin to realize that a lot of times we're better off than we think we are. And we spend so much time comparing ourselves to others. When they say comparison is the thief of joy, that's a true statement. It definitely is, because everybody has a different starting point, has different things going on in their lives, has different problems. You may think the guy down the street from you has a great life. They got a big house, they got a big car, a beautiful wife, great kids, but you don't know what goes on in that house at night. You don't know what they had to do to get to this point in life, or what they have to do to hold on to what they have. You don't know anything about them other than what you see. And so what you need to start doing is not engaging in, I wish I was them, but start thinking about, I'm glad to be me, and what can I do to continue to be a better me? How can I grow myself? But so many times, people are angry and depressed because they base their opinion of themselves on what others are doing. That's one of the most insidious things about social media, because you see all these people doing these great things, and you don't realize it might have taken them 50 takes to post that perfect video. The house that they're telling you about might not even be theirs. It might be a rental just for that one day to make their point for the video. Just because somebody says they gained $1 million in crypto on the stock market or what have you, until you see their financial records, you don't know for sure. So stop trying to be that other person and be the best you can be. That's a hard message to push in 2024 because of all the different things we see around us in terms of or how we view success. I feel like I'm a successful person because simple things. I've been blessed enough to have never been in jail. I've been blessed enough to be married to the same woman for 26 years. I've been blessed enough to have a child who went to one of the best schools in the country and is now teaching herself. We're paying it forward that way generationally. And she's also a great artist in the DC area. So I think of those things. So when I'm driving every morning to whatever job, whatever assignment I'm going to, I'm not sitting here going, I got to go here. I say, you know what? I'm going here, but I get to go here because I have my own car with gas that I was able to pay for, with clothes that I was able to buy. And somewhere in this world, there's someone riding a bus because they can't afford their own car. There's someone going to Goodwill because they can't buy the new clothes they want. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but there's always somebody in a worse situation than you. My dad, God rest his soul, had a great saying that I don't think it was his saying, but he would always tell me. He said, I was mad because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. So it's all about relativity and realizing where you are and take the blessings as they come. And if you appreciate, here's what I grew up believing. If you take care of a little, God will give you a lot. But he wants to see how you steward over that little piece before he increases what he blesses you with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said, Eugene. There is much to learn about life, about everything. And for that, you have written 6 books. A lot of people can learn a lot from those. Tell us about your books, 6 books, if you have written.
Well, I happen to have them here with me. I keep them with me all the time. One of the books I wrote, my father and I wrote this together, was called Grounded in the Word. And it is a book about mastering standardized test vocabulary by using the Bible. And you say, wait, what is that about? What we found, because my father and I are both educators, and what we found was that back in the early days of the SAT, many of the vocabulary words found in the verbal portion of the SAT were also in the Bible. So we cross-referenced those words and created an activity book where people of all ages can learn about God's word while learning the meaning of words in general. So that's one of the books we wrote, Grounded in the Word. Another book I wrote as a teacher with my father was It's a Reading Thing, Help Your Child Understand. Now, early in the interview, we talked about the importance of reading. So in this book, we talk about the importance of parents who model good reading behaviors in front of their kids. We talk to parents about the types of books that are what we call classic American and world literature that kids should be exposed to at certain ages and grade levels in life. We talk about the importance of how reading, good readers are good writers, are good communicators. We talk about a lot of those things. And so we're trying to encourage parents, especially parents from poorer backgrounds and underserved areas, to realize that you don't have to be rich to inspire your children to read. And we also try to tell people that education is the great equalizer. Remember, my father was one of 9 children in rural Orange, Virginia in the 1940s. And he used education to help him get a doctorate degree and become a professor and later a college dean and later work for some of the biggest school systems in the country out of some very humble beginnings. But education is what did that for him. Same for my mother. Education is what, my mother, a story that I love to tell because I love to brag on my parents. My mother I told you about, who was the regional language arts coordinator for Dade County Public Schools in 2008. She ran for mayor of Miami-Dade County. And here's the crazy story. So at that point, she was retired from teaching and she was kind of on a fixed income. She had a $500 campaign budget. Her incumbent opponent had a $1 million campaign budget. Now, she did not win the election, but she got 40% of the vote with only a $500 campaign budget. Why did that happen? Because she was a fixture in school board meetings as a community advocate. And so the community began to see her as someone who cared about the young people and the people of the Miami-Dade community. So when it came time for her to run, they all knew her name. And name recognition and reputation can sometimes do things that for you even money can't do. So it's all about the importance of education and using that education to not only benefit yourself, but benefit the folks around you.
Wonderful, wonderful, Eugene.
The last 2 books I'll show you is a novel I wrote called I Am the Darker Brother. It's loosely based upon my experiences as a member of a historically Black fraternity at a predominantly white college during my days at Emory University. That's where I got my undergrad degree, at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And another book I wrote was a book of poems, short stories, and social commentary, original writings by me, called Reflections of a Confused Middle-Class Black Youth. And so you can find all of those books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the book sites. And it's just one of those things where I love to express myself through my writing and share my experiences, because I believe that we can learn from everybody. And that's the biggest mistake we make. The biggest mistake we make is we look at people based upon where they are in life and assume, well, they're not a millionaire, or they're not rich, or they're living on the street, or they're living in their car, so there's nothing I can learn from them. You can learn something from everybody.
Absolutely. You can learn something from everyone. And a lot of people would like to learn more about you, more from you, more about, want to be in connect with you. So what is the best way for them to be connected with you?
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, you can check out my website, www.eugenewilliamsjr.com. That's one. Number two, you can email me at support@eugenewilliamsjr.com. You can also see me, my posts and my opinions on my Instagram page. That's at EUGWILLJR. You can also see me on TikTok at Eugene Williams Jr. So I'm in a variety of places, and I'm constantly talking about things we can do to make education better. I'm talking about things we can do to make our communities better. I'm talking about things that affect the African American communities, specifically in this country and throughout the world. And I'm just trying to enlighten some folks and engage in discussions back and forth. I don't know everything, and I know I don't know everything. So I love to learn from folks, and I love to impart my wisdom to them. What I call is a wisdom exchange, if you will. I love to get involved in those.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.